Begin. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the latest edition of Miami Hurricanes Talk with Danny, presented by Lorraine Sports. If you want to join Canes Connection, go to canesconnection.com and become a member today. The student athletes will thank you for that. And if you want to purchase this shirt, We Bring the Smoke, please go to lorrainesports.myshopify.com and you'll be able to put your order in for that. My guest this week is a graduate of Georgia Southern University, Chad Bishop. He's for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. He joins us. He has a few minutes. Canes at Georgia Tech noon on Saturday on ESPN. He has a few minutes to join us. Chad, good afternoon. Thank you for coming on today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Hey, I was reading your career highlights here. You started in state. Were you there at Georgia Southern during the Irk Russell days, or did Irk Russell leave?
No, a little bit after that, I started in '01, which was actually sort of the end of the Paul Johnson era.
Oh, wow.
And he ended up, of course, at Georgia Tech many years later. So, yeah, started there in '01, and they were still FCS 1AA at the time.
hmm it says you also worked as a sports editor with the Statesboro Herald, then went to Bowling Green, Western Kentucky, and then you worked at WBKO for a couple years there. Then you went to Vanderbilt. How was that like starting in 2018?
Crazy, man. I covered Vanderbilt for 10 months for 247 Sports, and then Vanderbilt University's communications department actually reached out, and I joined the staff as an SID, but also as an internal staff writer. So I covered the Commodores much like a newspaper beat writer would,
Mm-hmm.
only from the inside. So it was a little bit more, PR-y,
More
a little bit more,
nuance.
yeah, a little bit more positive. But it was fun, getting to know Clark Lee, who's a football coach there, and Jerry Stackhouse was a basketball coach at the time, and worked a lot with the bowling team and the men's golf team, and
Mm.
yeah, it was Nashville's booming, so it was a
Yeah,
good time
yeah.
had by all.
The baseball, as you know, is a national power there
Of
now.
course, yeah, I went to the College World Series the year Mississippi State won. Went to Arizona to cover a preseason tournament where a lot of pro guys were hanging about, and Tim Corbin's one of the best coaches of all time. So a lot of fun to work with that program too.
Now, you started with Georgia Tech. How has that gone for you so far, being a beat writer for Georgia Tech?
It's been good. It's been real interesting. I think the advantage for me is not only am I new, but Brent Key is relatively new. Jay Batt, the athletic director, is really new. Damon Stoudemire is only in his second year as basketball coach. So we're all kind of learning each other on the fly. And it's been good to know the fan base. They're a very passionate, fervent fan base, and they seem to read my stuff quite a lot and interact with me a lot on
Yeah,
social media. So it's been a lot of
yeah,
fun.
I like that too. Let's talk about the last game against Virginia Tech. You know they're coming off a bye week. Haynes King comes back this week, and I read something here, and it pretty much relates to if they're to upset Miami, and we
Mm-hmm.
all know about the miracle in Miami, which I'll get to in a minute.
Yeah.
What is you said the key? What is the number of yards they need to get to beat a
Yeah.
pretty potent Miami team?
Yeah, pretty interesting. When Brent Key took over in October of 2022, since he's been the head coach, when they run for 180 yards, Yellow Jackets are 14-2. So that's sort of the magic number, right? And when they don't hit that 180 benchmark, they're 2-12.
Yeah, I've
So
seen
they
that.
they got to run for 180 yards here to not only beat Miami, to really beat anybody. I mean, that's the secret sauce for this Georgia Tech team, is running the football. Brent Key, a former offensive lineman, with the running back that they have in Jamal Haynes, the offensive line they have, if they can establish the ground game, they can match up with pretty much anyone.
Yeah, I've seen Brent Key when he beat Florida State in Dublin. The
Mm-hmm.
best quote I heard from him is "Run the ball."
I think if we could put that on every locker room in America, I think a lot of people would be happy. I mean, especially for me, a former Georgia Southern guy growing up with the triple option. Yeah, man, run the ball. You don't have to run it 80 times a game, but establish the ground game, run the ball. You got these big guys on the offensive line, and from Georgia Tech's perspective, a veteran group, pound the rock, man. Establish the ground game and dominate the opponent that way.
Yeah, exactly. I noticed here when I think it's with Miami's defense,
Mhm.
we've only allowed 140 yards rushing more than
Yeah,
140 once this year, and
yeah.
that was the V Tech win. How do you establish just to a running game against a stout Miami defense that's coming in Saturday?
Well, I think you have to mix it up. I mean, Georgia Tech, when they're rolling, they get quarterback Haynes King involved in that run game. So that's going to be key. If he's healthy enough to run the ball, that's number one. Number two, you have to sort of pass it a little bit to open up that run game. And Georgia Tech's MO is throwing some bubble screens, so throwing some side to side, passes. They get wide receivers Malik Rutherford and Eric Singleton involved in the run game too. They'll
Mhm.
get them on some jet sweeps, a couple reverses. So anything that sort of gets the defense kind of going like this, back and forth, and all
Yeah.
of a sudden you kind of go up the middle with them on a couple times. I think it starts there. So that's way easier said than done with what Miami presents in their front four, their front seven. But if Georgia Tech can sort of, get Miami's defense off their keys and off their eyes, I think that's going to be a big part of Georgia Tech's success.
Yeah. Brent Key's telling the fans in Atlanta, get there early.
Mhm.
What was that about?
Well, it's a noon kickoff, number one, but it
Yep.
is homecoming. It is homecoming for Georgia Tech, so they expect a pretty big crowd. The student sections have been awesome under Brent Key. He's a big proponent of the students, and the students seem to love him. So that hasn't been the
Yes.
problem. It's been more getting the locals out, but I think with number four Miami coming in, I'm sure Miami will travel well. They'll have a bunch of
Yes, you
people
will.
there. The rapper Big Boy is going to have a concert before the game. I mean, it's going to be a big time atmosphere. So Brent Key knows that home field advantage is huge, and if you can get a big time loud crowd in there, that's going to be an advantage for the Yellow Jackets.
Yeah, we know about, and guy, Brent, Chad, I don't have to tell you about last year in Miami.
Mhm.
How has Brent Key mentioned that this week regarding the miracle last year in Miami?
I think he said it has no bearing on this game whatsoever. I think Mario Cristobal would probably agree. I mean, I think that's something probably more for the fans, especially in this transfer portal
Yeah,
era. Like, how many guys are left? I mean, Christian Leary, who scored the game-winning touchdown, left the team earlier this season. Thomas Gore, who was on Miami's team last year, is on Georgia Tech's team this year, right?
yeah,
Like, Paul Moala, who calls the fumble at the end, he graduated. I mean, there's so many guys that come and go. There's some guys on both rosters who remember that, but look at Miami. They're 9-0, one of the
yeah,
best teams in the country,
yes,
chance of winning a national championship. And Georgia Tech is struggling to make a bowl game. So the circumstances are different. The buildup is different. That game was in October of 23. This is way later in November of
yeah,
24. I think it's fun for the fans to talk about, but I don't think it has a ton of bearing when it comes to playing the game on Saturday.
yeah. I tell you, it's going to be a different game. Okay, now,
Yeah.
keys to the game. How is Georgia Tech preparing to stop that potent Miami offense and Cam Ward?
I think they understand that they can't stop it. They got to try to contain it. Like Clayton Powell, safety for Georgia Tech. I think he was great on Wednesday this week and saying, "Look, we know these guys are going to make catches. They're going to get some yards. It's sort of a bend don't break mentality. Like this Miami team is that good. It's limiting those huge explosive plays. It's understanding that, look, Xavier Restrepo is going to make some plays. Cam Ward is going to
Yeah,
make some plays. But being in this conference week in and week out, you're going to face great quarterbacks. You're going to face good running backs and good offenses. It's just a matter of hanging on, not necessarily by a thread, but just fighting for these 60 minutes and saying, all right, Miami scored on that possession. Let's come back out and make sure they don't score on that next possession. So there's an understanding there that Georgia Tech, Brent Key, I think it was funny. He said they turn on the tape. They know what they're going up against. There's no secret
yeah,
here to how good Miami is. So I think it's a positive that they understand that. There's no sugarcoating this, that Miami is really, really good. Georgia Tech is going to have to play one of the best games it's played all season long defensively, but also by understanding they're going to give up some points and some yards. They just can't allow that to sort of snowball on them.
yeah. Absolutely, I have to agree. Look. When you deal with Georgia Tech, listen. Georgia Tech's not the same Georgia Tech, with the Paul Johnson,
Mhm.
etc. I've noticed when I saw the FSU game earlier this year, this is a team that just loves to pound it down your throat with
Mhm.
a physical running game and a physical offensive line. Like I said, we mentioned the running game. How against a potent Miami defense, how is protecting Haynes King going to be in this game against a physical attacking Miami D?
It's huge because not only is protection any quarterback key, but Haynes King is banged up. Like he's got a bum shoulder. He hurt it in the North Carolina game. He's missed 2 games. And so they want to protect that first and foremost. Georgia Tech's offensive line has only given up a few sacks all season long. And for the
Mm,
first 5.5 games, they didn't give up any. So they've been outstanding in pass protection. It's all about some of these short intermediate throws. You can't let Haynes King hold the ball forever. There's none of these 5 to 7, step drops, putting
yeah,
him back there in the pocket at risk against this Miami pass rush. So again, it's all about mixing and matching, balancing that attack, keeping that Miami defense off balance, calling the right plays when Miami is blitzing, calling the right plays when Miami is sitting back. Again, all that's easier said than done. But if if Georgia Tech can sort of roll that dice and guess correctly on a lot of those plays, they'll be successful.
Yes, I noticed that. I think one thing to me, I'm going to give you my keys to the game,
Mhm.
and then you can give me yours for a Georgia
Sure.
Tech upset. Keys to Miami win. Cam be Cam. Do what Miami's done the last couple of weeks, but I want to see the pass protection get better because I have not the last couple of weeks. That's been a little bit off on that. I'd like to see also the running game really get going earlier, and and on the defensive end, the thing that's killed us is teams have gone man to man. We've gone man to man against Florida State and Duke, and they killed us doing that. So when we went to zone, that's when we started to say, hey, listen, let's clamp down. I think you're going to see us go to zone early against King, and King is banged up, like you said. I think you're going to see that early, and I think that would be enough to get the crowd out of the game, let Cam be Cam, and then Miami takes care of business against a pretty decent Georgia Tech team on the road. Your keys to a Georgia Tech upset.
Number one is just hang in there. Your Georgia Tech, just hang around. You know better than anybody.
Yes,
Miami's won some close games, right? Maybe they've escaped some close games.
yes.
Maybe this is the day they don't, right? So if you're Georgia Tech, just hang in there, right? Like you get down 14-0, just nobody panic, just hang around, keep fighting for 60 minutes. And under Brent Key, Georgia Tech's done an outstanding job of that, of not giving up, of hanging around, of fighting to the end. So I think that's number one. Number two, again, they have to run the ball effectively. I go back to that 180-yard mark. They got to get close to that. They got to control time of possession. They got to keep their defense off the field. This Georgia Tech defense has played pretty well the last couple of weeks in these losses under defensive coordinator Tyler Santucci.
Hmm.
They know how tough a challenge Cam Ward is. You can't be running them out there after 3 and out and 3 and out and 3 and out and punts. I mean, you got to keep Georgia Tech's defense off the field. So I think if they do a couple of those things, they'll have a chance in the fourth quarter. That belief will build. You mentioned the crowd will be into it. And maybe they'll have a shot at the end to maybe make a play or two to get out of there with one of the biggest upsets they've had in recent memory.
I'm thinking, Chad, I want to ask you, when was the last time, if I recall, that Georgia Tech pulled an upset against a top five team?
I'm gonna have to look that up. I don't know. When they beat Florida State, that was the first time they beat a top 10 team in a very, very long time. So we'll definitely have to go back and look at maybe a top five win or a team of this calendar. I'm sure it's been a very, very long time. Not to say that Tech can't do it, but man, it's hard to do. And so that again, it would just be a monumental feather in the cap for Brent Key and his program.
I'll tell you this, Brent Key's a solid coach,
Mm-hmm.
Chad. That guy say, hey, that guy's going to be a winner. Since the 2021 season, I read something here. Georgia Tech has 5 wins against ranked teams.
Yeah.
I've noticed that here. And the thing I look at it, and 4 wins against all other FBS opponents combined. This was last year. It's obviously different now. But let me tell you this. I'm going to let you out of here with a prediction. I always like to do that. Give me a prediction for Saturday, and I'll let you out of here.
Well, the spread is about 10 and a half, 11 points, Miami. I'm going to say Miami 31, Georgia Tech 21. I think Georgia Tech plays really well. I'm buying Miami. I just think the talent and firepower they have with Cam Ward playing at the level he's playing. I think it's going to be a very good game, but I just think Miami's going to have too much in the end to pull this one out by 10 points.
Chad, we all know what happened last year. Everybody on social media and
Yeah.
everybody around the world knows what happened.
Yep.
For 1 year, we've had to hear about it from other fan bases on social media.
Yeah.
I really think, they'll say they're going to play down it, they're going to come play it. I'm sure the guys inside the locker room at Green Tree and in the
Yeah.
soccer building in Miami have been sick and tired of hearing about the miracle in Miami, the non-kneel. We've
Yep.
all heard that for 1 year. I think Cam Ward is the difference. Cam Ward has come here to take care of business. I think Miami wins comfortably. I think if we do our things, we take care of Miami wins comfortably. I'm going to go Miami. It's one of the same. I'm going to go Miami 38, Georgia Tech 17. 38-17 Canes over Georgia Tech. Chad, thank you for coming on today. Greatly appreciate it. Enjoy the game Saturday. Sorry, I could not make the trip up to Atlanta, but I will be watching on TV. Take care. We will talk again soon.
All right, my friend. Thanks.